Well, hello there, and welcome to our next episode of Return on Investment Stories with Muse College Consulting. I'm so excited to have my amazing friend Elise here with me today. Hi, Elise, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? I'm
I'm
thrilled to be
so
here.
good. So good to see you in your beautiful apartment, and can't wait to jump into your story and share with everybody who might be tuning in why pursuing performing arts or a degree in the performing arts is an amazing path to take. So, before we kick off and get started, would you just tell me a little bit about who you are, how we know each other? Just tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm Elise. I know Tracy from the theater school at DePaul University, where she gave me my first ever job, which I just realized that today, reflecting on our history, and the admissions office, where I worked for most of my time at DePaul. I studied theater management in the BFA theater management program, and after that, I worked in arts administration for a little bit, and now I'm in law school, hoping to do entertainment law.
Yeah, amazing. So already from the first couple sentences, we know that you're a big achiever and already have an exciting story to dive into a little bit deeper. So thank you. And yeah, I can't believe I gave you your first job. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for trusting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being an amazing employee. So many years ago, it seems like now. But yeah, it's going to be great to talk a little bit more about your journey to law school. So you just mentioned a little bit very quickly, where you went to school and what you studied in, but let's talk about that a little bit more. So talk about, for any of our students out there who are in high school and still trying to figure out right now, like where to apply and how to approach this process and can I even pursue a degree in the performing arts? Talk a little bit about your journey in deciding to study theater management, maybe what else you were considering and how you kind of approached your college search process. I know it's been a minute, not too long, but it's been a minute, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I discerned hard about that too. So, and I haven't thought about it in a while. My whole childhood was theater. Like I was a huge musical nerd, and I knew I wanted to do something in theater. And I knew I didn't want to be, I performed in high school, but I knew I didn't want to be on stage or backstage. And I was like, surely there's someone who's making decisions and like sitting in an office somewhere, like signing a contract to make the art happen. I was like really interested in like what job is that? And I was like, okay, there's this thing called like theater management. Like, I mean, now that sounds very obvious, but I didn't at the time. It was felt very novel. So I was like trying to find a program that like taught this thing. And I learned that there were theater management programs, a few, not many around the country, some BA, some BFAs. But because there were so few, I was like, how else could I make this happen? And I was also looking at double majoring in business and theater, and then kind of just like making that happen on my own. And then I fell most in love with DePaul's theater management program because it was in Chicago where the jobs are. Like there aren't theaters that hire interns in small towns. And I love that it was a BFA program that was like so intensive around this kind of like very specific thing I was interested in. Um, yeah, and I was like, if I know I want to do this, why not just do it instead of kind of like piecing together something that looks a lot like what I could just be doing at a school. So that was kind of how I decided to do that. And I'm glad I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're not originally from Chicago, right?
Right, yeah, I grew up in Florida, so the transition that was a big move. Yeah, I was like really excited about like big city living. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And so in the end, how many schools did you apply to? Do you remember?
I feel like around 10,
Yeah, that's
and they all
great.
were a different combo of that, like theater management, business, theater. Yeah.
Yes. And would you say when you were going through the application process and for the schools that you had to do interviews with, did it become more apparent to you which schools felt like the best fit, or how was it sort of navigating where to choose to go?
Yeah, so it was like the physical space, like city, what city will like serve me. I knew I wanted to like do internships and really get my hands on during my program. Um, and it was like being in an environment of people that were kind of like me. I had a really hard high school, and I kind of was like ready to just like have fun and like do what I love. And yes, and when I toured, I actually think DePaul was the only BFA program I toured. Most places were had like maybe a BA theater management, but there was something about like this community, like a tight group. There were 5 people in my program and maybe like 100 in the school. I don't remember exact numbers, but there's something about like a community of people that are invested in your success and exactly the kind of success I'm looking for. I also loved the coursework for this program. There were three components. One was a theater management track, nonprofit and commercial. So you're just like learning like how does a commercial Broadway production get made? What like we
Hmm.
were doing spreadsheets about in like box office income. It was so cool. And then one was nonprofit theater, and then there was a business track through the business school, and there was a theater arts track through the theater school, which was like what does a designer do? What does a stage manager do? So having like all those components was exactly what I was looking for in a degree.
Yeah, it's amazing that that all came together for you like that. And because you don't sometimes you just don't know when you're on the front end of all of it. But I at least was lucky enough to observe that I think it went very well for you, and you got some really cool experiences as an undergrad. Not always rainbows and sunshine, right? As they aren't always, but talk a little bit, about what it was like to actually pursue that degree. I know you did some internships. So how did it, what was it like, and then how do you think it set you up for your professional life afterwards?
Yeah, I should have mentioned. So there were like those three components, but then the fourth was this like massive experiential element. We had to do four internships. I ended up doing five because I'm nuts, and I did them all in different cities because I'm also nuts, and all in like a different area of theater. Because I was like, I want to like run a theater one day. That was kind of like my dream at the time. So I want to know how everything works. So I did like a PR internship at an orchestra and fundraising for a dance company, and I worked at the League of Chicago Theaters doing. I like was writing for their blog mostly. I did finance for an off-Broadway theater. It was like so great to just like try a whole different bunch of different types of performing arts administration and kind of like figure out where I want to be. But I think that's like learning the stuff was like a gift, but like actually doing the stuff was the best part. Like hands down, that was the best part of my degree. And coming into a job after graduating and like knowing how to do a job, I found myself having more diversity of experiences than most people on my teams when I started in working in the arts. My first job was at Manhattan Theater Club. But I remember feeling the sentiment of like, oh, I've worked at so many different places and I've kind of seen how different teams work, and that's such an advantage. I mean, to any job you jump into, just being able to say, I know how to use email and like do the silly like mail merge, like the silly stuff, but also like I know how to communicate with my boss and to ask someone out for coffee whose job I think is interesting and get something done quickly and think ahead to the next problem that might happen and how can we make this better if something goes wrong, how can we fix it for the next time. Yeah, I think that like learning that before I was just like thrown into it really served me well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And you mentioned that you were in a pretty small cohort for your class. I think you said 5 students. And so, I think maybe talk a little bit about, what the pros and maybe cons are of attending a conservatory in a very specialized area of training.
Yeah, you have to really know you want to do it, which I think is not true for everyone.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people had criticisms of how our program was like, you have to figure out where exactly you want to be in this industry. Like, do you want to do marketing theater? Do you want to do finance theater? And some people were like, I don't know what I want to do. And like some people were like, actually, I think I want to do hospitality. And the answer to that is like, switch to a hospitality degree. Like I think in like a BA program, there's some like, oh, you can still decide you want to be a baker or whatever, and like keep your. It's not going to hurt your hospitality degree or communications degree if you actually have a goal of something else. But I found in the BFA environment, if you're not all in, it's like, what are you doing wasting your time getting this like intensive education in this very specific thing? So a lot of people kind of like moved around and to different degrees around the school. Also, some people were like, I want to be on stage. Like, I think I want to do theater management, but like, I also really badly want to perform on the side. And that like wasn't really an option for this specific program at that time. Maybe it's different now. But like for me, I was like knew exactly what I wanted to do, and was like, this is exactly the kind of environment I want to be like. I loved having like monthly meetings with an advisor. Like now I'm in back in school and there's 3,000 students in my class, and I go to the career advisor like, hey, like remember me? And she's like, no, I actually don't remember you from 2 months ago. So like having someone who like knows about your interests and is invested in your career, and the education to match that's like really aligned with your goals. It's like, I mean, I don't know anyone else who had an undergraduate experience that it's like that.
Yeah, that's great. And just speaks a lot to, when it's right for you, it's right, and you can see the advantages. But right for the students who may have realized somewhere in their training, like, well, I can't perform because it's just not permitted in this type of program. That's what's really important, I think, to be cognizant of exploring the BA versus BFA, or what's included in a BFA if that's a direction a student's going to go. So yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thanks for sharing all of that. So you've had a pretty exciting professional life since you graduated, and you're welcome to share when you graduated, and you also don't have to. But I would love for you to just talk about, where you started right after undergrad, and how you ended up now in law school.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018, which I guess is 7 years. And I think I mentioned I was at Manhattan Theater Club, which is an on and off Broadway theater company right after school. It was tough. It was tough to get a job in New York from Chicago, which is something else to consider when you're looking at schools, like where do you want to be at the end? But I hustled and made it happen. So I was doing special events and fundraising. I loved it. It didn't get paid very well, but like I loved like working on Broadway. That was so cool.
Yeah.
But I always knew I wanted to like be in this like strategic decision making seat. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know if that meant running a theater or like something else. And I also knew I wanted to do some graduate degree, either business or law school, thinking that would like serve me well in this like arts leadership capacity.
Mhm.
So I did that for a year, and then I found this job at the Metropolitan Opera doing labor relations, where I spent 5 years. It ended up being under the legal department, and it was basically negotiating with 15 different unions, resolving all issues that arose out of collective bargaining agreements. It was very legal heavy and interesting, and it was during the pandemic and then right after, so there was a lot of movement happening, and as the news suggests, the unions and the pandemic creates a lot of interesting challenges. So I felt, yeah, I was very lucky to kind of be there during that. And yeah, I learned so much. I fired people. I wrote contracts. Yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible opportunity as like a 20-something-year-old. And then I was like, I'm still like seeking this job that's like kind of like in the seat in the room that I want to be. And I think that being a lawyer is like in the right, like very close to that. I just like saw how lawyers were involved in decision making, and especially in like the arts where there's so little money and there's so the challenges, it's like feel very high stakes all the time. Yeah, especially in this like COVID bargaining time, it was like, oh wow, the lawyers are really like helping us get past this big challenge. So I applied to law school, and now I'm in law school. I just finished my first year, and I just finished my first internship, which was at a mostly entertainment law firm, where I got to work with the theater lawyer, which was amazing. I drafted some like Broadway investor agreements, like some script publishing deals. Um, yeah, like summarize stuff for like the trusts of famous Broadway people, which was so cool. And then like some like film and television stuff, and like a little bit of everything, some intellectual property, some litigation. It was amazing. Yeah, so it was very like in line with kind of what I'm hoping to do. And then I'll be at Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts in the fall, which is like an organization that helps lawyers who can't, or artists who can't afford lawyers, and pair them with people for free legal work, which will be great. And then next summer I'll be at a big law firm, which has some entertainment. So I'll see if I can kind of get in there. But if not, just like being a massive firm, I also like I chose that for the same way as most of my career decisions, like thinking about the thing that will serve me well for the next thing. Um,
Mhm.
which so that'll be my next thing that will hopefully lead to the the final thing.
The next thing, right? Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
everyone will be able to tell from this conversation, you're very much a planner. So
yeah, yeah,
it's clear to see from the beginning why theater management was a good track for you to follow.
yeah. Yes, yeah, it all
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah,
Or it's
no,
working.
it's amazing. Would you say what you learned at the Met and in previous roles before that has really helped you in these internships that you're doing, now in law school?
Yeah, like has my uh, performing arts admin stuff served this stuff?
Yes.
Totally. Yeah, I actually think people who have creative backgrounds do really well in law school, just like the way you think about, I mean, even just like text analysis. Like there are so many like little things that like someone who's doing poli sci isn't thinking about the world in the same way as someone who has a degree in something creative.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, almost maybe equally more than that, just like having work experience in anything really is good. Like there are lots of kids who go to law school without work experience or with like did a year kind of like giving people coffees or whatever. And I think like having several years of like doing something, and the arts are very, they tend to be like smaller staffed, uh, big problems, not a lot of money, not a lot of people. And I think you're kind of thrown into like real world challenges really fast. And I think coming in with like those problem solving skills also have been very useful being back in a internship environment where like that helps when you have no idea what's going on. Like, oh, let's like figure it out. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I feel like yeah, I feel like my background it's like the perfect background. I don't think I would have done as well as I did in law school. I don't think I would have had. I know I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've gotten if I didn't have the background that I did. So I'm very thankful for the degree and the professional experience.
Yeah, that's huge. And I really appreciate you highlighting, a lot of what I'm hearing you say or that's coming out of this is that, you've had to hustle, right? In each point in your journey and finding those internships back in college and even pre that trying to figure out how to put together the degree that would make you happy, not even knowing where it would ultimately lead you to, right? Like, everybody jumps in or goes into the college process, I think, with an idea of what it could be, but you don't really know until you go through being in college and having that experience and broadening your understanding of what possibilities are out there. And to your point of spending time working in the professional world before going to law school, there's a lot to be said for that. And this is my own bias, but I am a believer in getting experience before going to grad school because you just to what you just said, you learn more about yourself, you learn how to approach a process, and it's I think in some ways just less intimidating because you have more confidence in how to pursue that next experience and plan ahead as you do it, very well as you've highlighted. So yeah, it's amazing. And I never doubted you'd be extremely successful, both professionally and in law school, but it's also here, great to hear it, hear you sharing that and seeing it all coming to fruition. So yeah, it's amazing. So you talked a lot about transferable skills and how they've served you well. Do you have any others that you can think of that have really, in thinking about the return on investment of a performing arts degree, like what would you say have been truly the biggest advantages of the path that you have, journeyed on so far?
Yeah, I mean the things that always stand out is like the work experience and the small classes and the intensity. I do think especially at a conservatory, you're signing up for like an intense environment in some way. I mean, like my degree is it's a very kind of unique thing that it's like a business degree and within the conservatory, but like it it was crafted in a very similar way of like this is your world. But I think like what that degree taught me is like think about think about what you do and your part in the process of art making as even if it's not performing or making something as your art. This is your craft, and think about the craft with like even a greater reverence. Like we're making this like very sacred thing, not to get all woo woo, but we're making this sacred thing, and your part in that is so important, and it is an art in itself. And I feel like having that philosophy is like, oh, I'm like working in an office, but like I just strongly feel like what I'm doing is like helping this bigger thing happen in a very special way. And I think even when I've been doing stuff that's like, okay, this isn't really in line with where I want to be one day, but like I think I bring that like that feeling of like who I am in the bigger picture, and like my journey, my own work product is like a type of art and kind of like a abstracted way. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I think that you get that in a performing arts or like an arts environment, especially theater where everyone has a very like obvious role. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I don't think I would have kind of like thought about my career in that way if I wasn't at the program that I was in.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear because it's showing that you learn how to be a team player in this in a part of a big picture, right? And I think that's, it also probably helps in those moments where you might be doing work that's not your favorite thing to do, right? We all have those components of our jobs. Like, I'd rather not do that today, but I will because it's part of this big picture that's helping a greater good. And so I think it's a really interesting and thoughtful way to think about it, and will continue to serve you well as you move forward. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I think my one of my last big questions it centers around any advice you would give to somebody who's and or their families and supporters, right? Like sometimes people approach their performing arts degrees with skepticism because they're very fearful or just unaware of what that future could look like. And I think, rightfully so, supporters and parents want to make sure that their people are gonna be secure and safe and be able to pay their bills and all of the things. And so what would you say, your advice is, or words of wisdom you'd like to pass along?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say like this degree is like the best thing I could have done. Like I really firmly like I feel like DePaul should hire me for more or recruit me for more like panels and stuff because I'm obsessed with how the whole like the way it was structured and like opportunities I got. Like I just think it was perfect for me. But I think like there are a million ways to go about pursuing a performing arts degree, and this would just happen to be perfect for me. But there's a different person who has very similar goals that something else would be more perfect for them. And I feel like when you're thinking about pursuing a degree in the arts, like you're more than other degrees, you're investing in like in your present self and your future self. Like being a actor, even a BFA in acting, like every day you're doing your craft. Sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes you'd much rather just like be doing a summer camp adjacent kind of degree while you're like studying marketing, which is like your kind of your fallback, and you probably could be a famous actor with that combination as well. So like and like for me what I wanted in the present was like to have an internship and learn exactly. I was like, I want to know like what database I'd be using in my job. And like I got that. But some people were like, are you kidding me? Why am I having this training on this fundraising database right now? Like I would rather be doing whatever, some other weird class. So that's like the present. And then I met a comedy arts student the other day, BFA comedy arts, and I was like, "You're studying BFA comedy arts? Like, what the heck?" I'm sure I said it more polite, but they were like, "I'm like, it's just a degree. Like, I'm able to create every single day, and I will graduate with a college degree, which is important to have regardless of what it's in. And every day of my life is amazing." Like, yeah, that's like there's something to be said about doing what you love for 4 years in like the most formative 4 years of your life. Like if
Mhm.
for like some people like if you're gonna be miserable for 4 years and then jump into an accounting job, like like literally what's the point? So I think there's it's so important. But at the same time, that decision, however, whatever's right for you, should be thinking about what place will I be in 4 years after this, and I'm looking for a job. Like a great day-to-day degree might not serve you well for finding a job in this area if you even want to do that. And I think that's like you have to kind of be ready for that to shift as you go through and think about if this might shift, will this degree help me when it shifts? Like I think there's so many variables, but kind of like having an idea of how will this program serve me after um, is really important too. So yeah, I think for me it was like the present and the future were very connected, but other people I think the balance between those things is different for each person. Some people it's way more important just to like have some fun and trust like this school has the resources to help me get to the next place when I'm ready to think about that.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my advice to
Yeah.
young people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because what I take away from that, hopefully people who are watching this will as well, is that there's no one pathway for any person, right? And there's so many different directions you can go. So to the point of you picking a program that you're going to love being in every single day, and sort of hoping in the end it leads you to that professional position, or to at least the place where you're going to feel very happy when you're done. It's sort of having the combination of both, where I love this degree and it's going to give me all of these components that will very potentially set me up for the future. And it can also be, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that I believe in the institution and what they have to offer and where it can take me. And then any combination therein. So I think, yeah, there's no as frustrating as it is for many students, there's no one prescribed answer that works for everybody, but there is so much to be said about making this a big adventure, right? And that's, I think, what I where I don't want people to stray away from the performing arts is that sometimes again people think, well, what is that going to do and where will I end up? You will be fine if you go in knowing that you are gonna get that degree, you're gonna have those transferable skills, and I think this is huge. You're gonna have a network of people who tend to form a community that want to support each other. And that's something that I've loved being a part of and learning from in my roles is just watching the performing arts community just be very oftentimes very united and again wanting to be there for each other and step up to the plate to ensure success in whatever that may look like for somebody. So I appreciate all that you just shared in that, and it's just a fun world and place to be in. Hence why I'm here and started Muse College Consulting. Is that I want to be in a place where I can support future performing artists and be part of that space and place and help and be a little part of people's journey as they hopefully thrive in pursuing their passions. So yeah, so thank you. It's been such a joy as always to talk to you and learn from you. And I'll give a little shout out. Yes, ask Elise to do any panels
I
you
know,
want.
please, I'm dying. I was so glad to be asked to do this.
Yay. Well, I'm so grateful that you said yes. And for people again watching, here's one more great example of an amazing human who's living the dream and at least we can't wait to follow along and see what keeps happening for you. So thanks so much.
Thank you.